Well, the Blue Jackets lost their fifth game in a row, but at least no one got injured, or no one new got injured. Anyway, we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about Yegor Chinkhov, going to be missing from the lineup for a little bit, and maybe look ahead to the final game before Christmas. That's what coming up today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, lots of excitement, lots of yelling, updates, previews, recaps, prospect talk, all of the above, and more about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm not wearing a turtleneck. The neck of this hoodie is just doing something weird. It's fine. A little look behind the camera for those of you who have not gotten on the YouTube yet, but before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day, even when I record at like 5:07 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate you for making this your first, your second, your third listen of the day. Locked On Blue Jacket is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also over on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out there yet, then you should feel free to do so. And well, we've got to talk about the game. If we don't talk about anything else, we should probably talk about the game because, for better or worse, what happened, a lot more happened than did in the Dallas Stars game, but not all of it was good, unfortunately. The Blue Jackets lose 5-3 to the Philadelphia Flyers, which I guess, fine. If you're gonna put in that kind of performance against the Philadelphia Flyers, then I feel like you kind of deserve the L, frankly. Flyers at 11, they were 10, 15, and 7 on the season. So they had, I think they had 5 points on the Blue Jackets just from overtime games. But so the same amount of wins, same amount of losses. The Flyers came out of this one victorious. Honestly, when they allowed that opening goal to Travis Konechny shorthanded, I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those games. But the first period was super weird. And I don't know if this is like a thing that everyone else thought as they were watching the game, but it felt like the puck was bouncing around. It felt like the ice wasn't very good for some reason. I don't know. It just everything looked off a little bit, and I couldn't decide if that was just because the Blue Jackets are playing the second half of back-to-back and the Flyers are mostly incompetent. I say that like the Blue Jackets aren't incompetent, you know what I mean? But it felt like a lot of the passes were not going where they needed to be, or the puck was bouncing or deflecting or just going in weird directions. So maybe that's a symptom of this game. But Travis Konechny opens the scoring. That's his 13th of the season. Just a real unfortunate bounce for Daniil Tarasov. And that felt like justice for me talking about how the power play had been getting better the past couple of games. Clearly, the hockey gods looked at that and was like, right, well, we'll show him power play. And that was, I believe, the only special teams goal scored in the entire game. Yep, sure was. Blue Jackets hadn't allowed a short-handed goal in a while, but they allowed one there. And then the second period is kind of where it really went uphill and then downhill extremely fast. Kirill Marchenko scores his third of the season. Jake Christensen, Eric Robinson get assists on that. Really great to see him score. Just, again, a really weird goal. That was a real stupid goal. If you asked him to do that again, I bet he could try 100 times and manage it once. Like, I bet 99 times out of 100, that shot doesn't go in. Just a long shot from Jake Christensen. I thought had a pretty good game, all things considered. But just a real, I hate to say lucky deflection, because I know these guys practice that kind of thing, and this is not just the puck hit him and bounced in, but it sure was a stupid goal. And then Ken Johnson, who has been going from good to great to better on that top line, I think. I thought he had, a really strong game at center. Face-offs still not there, but it is what it is. I'm not going to be like, hey, send the guy down to the third line wing because he can't win a face-off. Like, neither can anyone else on this team. is the thing. Makes it 2-1 about 3 minutes later, and then like a minute and a half after that, Morgan Frost scores just a really nice shot from Morgan Frost to tie the game, and then Owen Tippett again. Just I feel like that was again a really stupid goal. Makes it 3-2, and that was just a casual 4-goal second period. It's fine. Blue Jackets down 3-2 to go into the third. Travis Konechny again. How are you going to give a guy like Travis Konechny, who has already scored and who has already showed that he's got speed, he's got hands, how are you going to let him just like walk in like that? That might have been the best goal scored all game. I mean, there's a competition for that, and we'll get into that in just a second. But he kind of just walked his way in, walked past everyone, and then just a nice little backhand over the shoulder of Tarasov and in the net. But again, I don't know, man. What are we doing here? If you're going to let Travis Konechny have all that time and space, like, what are we doing here? Andrew Peeke tries his hardest to make it a game. Makes it 4-3 Philadelphia, with the third goal of the game for the Blue Jackets at 11-11 of the third. Just kind of somehow leading the rush, deking Justin Braun, and then firing crossbody into the net. And that was Andrew Peeke, I guess. He again, and I saw this on Twitter, and I'm inclined to agree. Since pairing him with Christensen, I've actually quite liked that pairing. I think Christensen, I want a little bit more ice time from him. I want a little bit less ice time for Andrew Peeke, but him being on that third pairing with Christensen, I think that's a really solid third pairing. And I think Christensen had a good game. I think Andrew Peeke had a pretty good game. Unfortunately, the Blue Jackets, again, it's watching them try to defend an empty net is comical. It might be even funnier than watching them try to like score a goal with the goalie pulled, or trying to score on an empty net. Excuse me. 5-3 Philadelphia. Owen Tippett gets his second of the game, and that'll do it. Blue Jackets got outshot. They got out face-offed. They got out hit. Like, they just were not a good team in this game. And it wasn't like the Dallas game, where the Blue Jackets, I think, played really well and lost. It was the Blue Jackets were incompetent, and the Flyers were just slightly less incompetent. So we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of some of the ins and outs of the game in just a minute. But first, I've got to tell you about Bet Online, because it's where the game starts. It's your number one source for sports betting information, news, analysis, stats. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there. With another goal from Kent Johnson, he's tied for third in rookie scoring. I still think that you can put some money on him for the Calder Trophy, and you can do that at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, and I'm assuming you do because you're listening to Locked On Blue Jackets, you can get those at betonline.net as well. And they are the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. They're just better than all the other sports betting websites out there. They just are. So head to the website today. That is betonline.net. Use your laptop or your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. So let's talk about the game in a little bit more detail, because there's a couple of like ins and outs that I want to talk about. First of all, the penalty kill, for the most part, looked good. I believe the Flyers only took one penalty. It was one penalty per team. Neither team scored, except for the fact that the Blue Jackets allowed a shorthanded goal. But the penalty kill, I thought, was solid. It looked like it had good movement. The power play was it existed. It happened. That's about all I can say about it. They ended up moving some of the lines around. It wasn't Gaudreau, Nyquist, Laine, Roslovic, and Bjork on for the entire thing. Actually, they mixed it up a little bit. This was something that I kind of had a bit of a shock realizing. Eric Branson played the last 30 seconds of the power play. Why? Genuinely, why? I get you don't want to allow another shorthanded goal, but why? Why is Eric Branson out there on the power? He led the team in ice time again. Second was Tim Burney, I think, because he's been paired with Eric Branson, which I don't think is the best thing for Tim Burney, but he's getting a little bit of power play time. He's getting some shorthanded time. Marcus Bjork is still getting the bulk of the power play. time. Marcus Bjork has the second lowest ice time, but before, like, Jay Christensen aside, and we've talked about Jay Christensen and his ice time, and I don't think it's getting better, but it's still not, where I want it to be. Every other defenseman played over 18 and a half minutes. Marcus Bjork was the second lowest at 18:53. Erica Branson was the highest at 22:30. So about 2.5 minutes deviation minus Christensen, who for some reason, again, Brad Larson has decided he doesn't like him. In terms of ice time for the forwards, though, again, Kirill Marchenko is getting more ice time than expected. He's at 16:26 for the game. Kent Johnson got 18:24, which I believe is third in all forwards, which, again, he's playing with Laine and Gaudreau. Like, that makes sense. Laine led the forwards in ice time. Again, it was Laine, Gaudreau, Johnson, and then the second line probably takes that second spot. For some reason, Matthew Olivier got 15 and a half minutes of ice time. Sean Kiraly got 17. Eric Robinson got 14 and a half. Like, I understand that you're, playing a bunch of bottom six guys too high in the lineup, but if you're only going to play Josh Dunn 8 minutes a game, Liam Foodie 9 minutes a game, Carson Meyer 9 minutes a game, like, you need to call someone up that you're going to use. Because you can't play 3-line hockey in this league. You just can't do it. Especially if your third line is essentially a fourth line. That, again, I haven't looked. I assume they got caved in by the Flyers because they've been getting caved in basically all season. This comes on to something else that I want to talk about a little bit is Emil Bemstrom had 2 goals last night in a loss to the Utica Comets. You cannot look at that bottom six, and think that all 6 of those players are better than Emil Bemstrom. I did see an interesting comment on Twitter that someone said, and they did make it a good point, honestly. Let me see if I can find it. Bemstrom's the hottest he's ever been. He's a natural scorer who struggled to score in North America. Let him go on a heater. If you bring him up and he still struggles, you kill his confidence, and there's not a chance he gets through waivers again. He's not taking us anywhere we're not already going, which, yeah, that makes sense. That was House of Deguchi, David DeGood on Twitter. So shout out to David. That is a good point. I think it's just frustrating to watch a guy who is succeeding in the AHL stay in the AHL while other teammates are getting called up who have not been as good. Like I like Josh Dunn a lot. I don't know that he's ever going to be a full-time NHLer. You can't tell me that he's a better option for the Blue Jackets third line right now. Like, Carson Meyer, I think, is getting the short end of the stick. I actually like Carson Meyer a lot. But you can't look at that bottom 6 of Foodie, Meyer, Dunn, Olivier, Kiraly, and Robinson and be like, yeah, Emil Bemstrom is worse than all 6 of those players, because I genuinely don't think he is. Like, I think Kiraly's probably better just by dint of being able to win faceoffs. Is Robinson better? Robinson has more experience. But I especially wouldn't hate a line of Kiraly, Robinson, Bemstrom. Like, I wouldn't hate that line. But to do that, you'd have to take Olivier out of that line, and they're not going to do that because they love that line together. And I don't know, man. It's extremely frustrating because I understand why they're not calling him up, but I would like them to call him up. It's very similar to kind of what I said. God, I don't even remember. It might have been when Bemstrom first got called up, actually, a while ago, when all of the injuries started. Like, Emil Bemstrom is not digging this team out of the basement. Like, this is where the team is. I don't think there's an AHL forward out there. I don't think there's a player out there that the Blue Jackets have signed to a contract. But, Jake Voracek magically getting healthy again, for example, or Zach Werenski magically getting healthy again. I don't think there's a player out there that can fix the Blue Jackets right now. I don't think Bemstrom is not the answer to this team, like, suddenly being good, but it's frustrating to watch him play well with the Blue Jackets this season, because I think he did play well for the Blue Jackets this season in the couple of games that he got in, get sent down, start tearing up the AHL, and then other players get rewarded for doing less. And I do get this whole, we don't want to kill his confidence. And I do think, in terms of like what David is saying about, killing his confidence and, leaving him on this heater, would I rather him play, 20 to 25 minutes a night with the Monsters, or would I rather him get the Liam Foodie treatment of playing 8 minutes a game and then being scratched kind of on a whim? Like, if they could guarantee 12 plus minutes a night, for example, for Emil Bemstrom, I'd be like, yeah, call him up. But they can't do that because then that would cut into the ice time of that fourth line, which obviously we couldn't do for any reason whatsoever because that's our emotional support fourth line, whatever. But it's tough to watch a guy succeed in the AHL and know that he could succeed in the NHL, but they're not going to give him that opportunity unless, knock on wood, somebody else does. Somebody else gets injured. In a minute, we're going to talk about more injuries because Yegor Chinakhov is going to be out for a while, and I have been crunching some numbers to see how the Blue Jackets are doing in terms of man games lost. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute on Locked On Blue Jackets. So the Blue Jackets have the record for man games lost at 507 right now. That was the 14-15 season where everyone was injured, literally everyone. That was the season, I think, that Boone Jenner missed most of the season. Ryan Murray missed most of the season. They had just so many injuries. That might even have been the season where the goaltending was Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg, because Bobrovsky got hurt and then Curtis McElhinney got hurt, and it was a time. The Blue Jackets, everyone was injured in that season. That was a real bad season. So 507 is the number that the Blue Jackets, quote unquote, have to beat. The Blue Jackets right now, well, I did the math before Chinkhov was announced that he was going to be out for about 6 weeks. So the Blue Jackets man games lost right now, and this is only counting like long-ish term injuries. So I'm not counting, like, I know Kent Johnson missed a couple of games after coming back from Finland. I know Chinakhov missed a couple of games earlier in the season with a knee injury. I know I'm pretty sure Elvis has been missed a week or two with an injury. I haven't counted any of those guys. These are just guys that have been on IR for longer than 10 games. So Justin Danforth out for the season. He played 6 games. So if we assume that he misses every other game, that's 76 games by the end of the season. Voracek, again, we assume that he doesn't come back. 71 games. Bean, done for the season. He will miss 68 games due to injury. Werenski will miss 69 games due to injury. Nick Blankenberg, if he comes back on schedule, he'll have missed 20 games. If Adam Boquist comes back on schedule, which I believe is Friday's game against the Blackhawks, he will have missed 25 games. Korpisalo, if he comes back on schedule, he will have missed 15 games. If we include the games that he missed at the start of the season, he started the season on IR, and then he has been out for about a week. So that's 15 games in total. Again, Jenner, if we assume that he misses the exactly a month of games, that's 15 games missing. For Jenner, Patrick Laine has missed 14 games this season with the elbow injury that he got in game 1, and then the ankle injury a couple of weeks ago, which he came back from. If we assume that Chinakhov is out for exactly 6 weeks, he missed 21 games. That brings us to 394 man games lost. And that is, again, not counting like the 2 games that Kent Johnson missed, or the 4 games that Elvis Merzlikins missed, or the 2 other games that Chinakhov missed, or, Eric Branson missed a game, or Andrew Peeke missed a couple of games, I think. Like, that is just guys that have been out for longer than, I think 14 games is the lowest there. So guys that have missed more than 14 games, we're at 394. That gives the Blue Jackets 113 games of injury to play with. And that's also not counting Cole Sillinger, who's missed 2 games so far with this undefined upper body injury. 113 games is very doable in the last, 50 games of a season. That's... The Blue Jackets could break their own record. I don't know that they'll break the record that the Montreal Canadiens set last year. I believe they hit almost 700 man games lost. But it's tough to look at this season and, it's a lost season. And yeah, the Blue Jackets weren't playing well when they were healthy. The Blue Jackets, I don't know that have had a full healthy lineup this season. I don't know that they have had every single player healthy at the same time. And so, yeah, partially this is because they started off disappointing and then everyone got hurt and the goaltending hasn't been very good and the goal scoring hasn't been there and special teams have been bad. But you look at this like list and you look at how many man games are lost already. And you think, okay, do I think that Blue Jackets would have been a playoff team if they had everyone healthy? Like maybe, but not necessarily. But I don't think they'd be in the basement. I don't think they'd be where they are. And so someone else on Twitter mentioned, of all of the years to get, injury gotcha'd, this is not a terrible one. Again, the Blue Jackets, I believe, were in the running for Austin Matthews with the last terrible injury season that they had when they lost those 507 games. They were like one lottery ball away from that first overall pick. And, who knows what the team would look like if it had Austin Matthews on it. But in a season where, Connor Bedard is that prize pick, and then you have, 3 to 6 other guys that you could pick second or third overall that probably would change this franchise, it could be worse. And so while it's tough watching the team struggle, it's tough watching everyone get injured. Like, if there was a season to be bad and there was a season to be really injured, like, this is it. And we're going to start prospect coverage probably soon-ish after Christmas because there's a lot of it to get through, and the Blue Jackets aren't making the playoffs, so we might as well look at maybe the top 16 to 20 picks and then see where we go from there. So that's probably going to be a little bit down the line. But yeah, I just wanted to look at the numbers because I was like, man, they've lost a lot of games. They've got 10 guys on IR right now, plus a couple of other guys that are out for like indefinite reasons. And obviously, Merzlikins is out with COVID at the minute. I don't know if man games lost counts as illness and injury, but so there's another guy down. Just this season, man, it's so tough to look at and be like, yeah, this season they could have done something because I don't. Even if they've been healthy, like maybe, but the fact that they are this broken and just keep getting more broken is just so disheartening. But we'll end on that quite depressing note. That's all I've got for you today. Tomorrow we're gonna look ahead to the Chicago game on Friday, because I'm sure that'll be fun. If Adam Boquist comes back, then the Blue Jackets will have one of the 4 players that they got for the Seth Jones trade in the lineup. If he doesn't come back and Sillinger is still out, all 4 players that the Blue Jackets got in that trade will be either injured or, in the case of Derry Jiricek, I believe he's doing the World Juniors, actually. So he is, knock on wood, he is healthy and okay, just not with the team. But they got 4 players for Seth Jones, and not one of them is in the lineup right now. So that's frustrating, but we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about how the Blackhawks are doing, their quest for Bedard. On tomorrow's episode, I've been Jeff Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please feel free to do so. We haven't hit the next milestone yet, but I would really like to do that. And just as we approach Christmas, I appreciate you. I hope you all have a fun holiday season. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.